Chapter 28. Maybe it was the way he gave me time to speak, or choice, or the choice not to. Maybe it was because I was allowed to paint, draw, or do whatever clay items I wanted with no repercussions. It didn't matter if they were ghastly or of a horror nature. Maybe it was just because he was a damn good therapist, and I was lucky. Maybe it was the picture. I'll never forget that day. I was sat outside the waiting room in the hall. There were toys around the semicircle area, some below chairs, some in a box in the corner, and there was a rocking horse in front of me. A big wooden thing with reins and everything. The waiting area was empty, all apart from me and Nigel. All apart from me, and Nigel was a little late. I didn't mind, because I'd been in that position myself, where I'd talked so much. I'd hit a point where I needed to, and that moment was so important. Nigel had given me the time I needed to do so. The door opened, a small girl with dark hair walked out in front of Nigel. She walked head up, straight past the rocking horse and not making eye contact. She seemed like she'd just found the ultimate confidence. Nigel walked a few paces behind her. I saw him smile to himself as he lifted his head up. I could see he was proud of her. The girl was pretty, and I wondered what horrors she had witnessed. I felt good because we had this place, and we had Nigel, and it reinforced to me that no matter how alone I actually feel, I'm never really alone. There are people like me everywhere. This made me feel sad, even though I could feel the strength of this girl's energy as she rounded the corner and walked out. I turned to Nigel with my jaw open and stood up. "Hello, good to see you," he said, turning away from me so as I'd follow him. When I entered the room, I noticed to my right an amazing scene. A huge painting of a waterfall. I was awestruck. It was beautiful. A cliff face with a waterfall that appeared to wash away every form of abuse imaginable. I remember thinking, what has she seen? And I hoped her waterfall would stay with her forever. I don't recall our session, although I do remember thinking about the girl a lot. How could I be like her? Had she seen what I had? Could I be that strong? She was amazing, and I just wanted to run up to her and hug her, tell her I was proud of her, and hope that one day someone would feel that way about me. But I knew that if they ever did, there was no way I would accept their sympathy. I soon learnt to trust Nigel. I don't know how that came about, other than the freedom to decide if I trusted him or not. Perhaps it was also because Brenda knew nothing of my school, or because Nigel didn't ridicule me. But during one session, when Nigel was sat by the desk and I was standing in front of my chair, I sat down and placed a freshly stirred coffee, complete with clay-ridden pencil, by my feet. My dad killed my mum, I told him, convincing myself I was testing him. After all, I didn't tell him anything else. "Okay," he said, continuing his drawing of men and women figures. He'd started last session, where I'd given him the silent treatment. It's hard to recall exactly how he got me talking, yet I know he intrigued me. He made me want to know about him and become friends, but he never said or used the word friends. He never treated me like a client, a number, or a wage either. He genuinely seemed to care. He had solid boundaries and ethics. I remember choosing to draw one week, but I couldn't think of anything. I didn't tell him. I just sat there with my pen and paper, which was my choice. I used to draw in biro with my granddad, and loved having black, blue, green, and red to draw with. I didn't use the green at all. My figures were men fighting in martial arts, and usually involved a lot of blood, or they were stabbing each other. Sometimes I'd make them as graphic as I could. The tops of heads missing, with the brains hanging out and the spine sticking through, blood everywhere, or grim reapers chopping off arms and legs. I knew it made me feel better. I knew in some way I was drawing things that other people weren't. I drew on school books, at Brenda's, and every chance I got. I wasn't very good, but I didn't care. When Brenda saw them, she said they were horrible. Why would you draw that? So I did it all the more to piss her off. The images became Brenda, Jim, Clive, bullies, and even my grandparents. But on some level, all of them were me and Wenzel. None had identifying marks. It was impossible to tell who was who. I didn't want Nigel thinking I was crazy, so I didn't draw. I sat staring at this blank piece of paper most of the session. Nigel got some clay and made a shape, mounding it expertly. "Okay, and That spelling error got through 58,000 different word edits. That is moulding it expertly, and I will be correcting that and updating the manuscript later. So back to the book. Nigel got some clay and made a shape, moulding it expertly. He seemed amused at his creations. "Want to try?" he said, squishing his man of clay and handing it to me. "How?" I said, handing it back. Thud. The clay landed on my blank sheet of paper, crushing all of the things I remembered drawing but hadn't even touched. "I don't know. It's your creation," he said, smiling, and returned to his desk. I had 10 minutes left of session. I started to shape the clay. Arm. Complete a set to work on another arm. I remember so clearly concentrating to make each piece the same size. Somewhere I zoned into my own world without realizing. Clive. I'd make Clive. Clive beat my dad. We got made homeless. We lived in a car. We went into care. My father killed my mother. I'll make Clive. Nobody'd know who it was. It's just a figure. Clive had 2 long legs, thick and strong, big body. I glanced up. "Nigel, I'm over time," I said. "Today you can carry on if you want to. I have nobody waiting." I got back to work on the body and head. I placed the figure, stood up in front of me, double checking it. 2 arms, 2 legs, a body and a head. Clive. I saw him in my head, stood at Nan's. "I want a word with you." I felt my fear. Caroline's fear. I saw his drunken eyes and felt his intent. The alcohol smell I'd blocked out the instant I realised I had to run. I stared through the clay Clive. Alan was fighting him, again this time in my memories. I saw Alan hit the floor and bite Clive, and Alan grab his head and shout, "Run!" His face scared. Scared for me, not for himself. Then I watched my friend trip over my foot, toppling and slam into the darkness as the radiator vibrated and his head hit the floor with a hollow thud. The sound unlike anything I had heard before or since. I stared. Clive. "Trace?" Nigel asked, as we'd agreed that's what he'd call me, in my room. I looked at him. I could feel the pain in my eyes. I closed down immediately. "What?" I asked, with a look. "Want to tell me who he is?" he asked. "Sorry, want to tell me who it is?" he asked. "No," I said. "Okay, you've done a good job. Will you tell me if I guess?" he said, sitting forwards. "Yeah," I laughed. "Is it male?" Nigel asked. "Yeah, he's male," I said, glancing from Nigel's elaboratively friendly face to the evil anger-inducing Clive, who just stood looking at us. I lay him down gently. "Why did you lay him down?" Nigel asked me. I shrugged. "No answer is wrong," Nigel said. "I forgot to do eyes. It's not very good," I lied. "And the real reason?" Nigel asked. I stared at Nigel for a full minute with zero response. He didn't fold his arms or lean back. He didn't end the session or go back to drawing. He just sat smiling at me, with all this care on his face. Like my answer meant the world to him. "I don't want him to watch us, to hear us," I said. "Thank you," Nigel said, cracking me. A huge smile, his beard rising with his white teeth. "Eh?" I asked. "For trusting me. Whatever you say to me stays between you and me. There's no wrong answers." "Then why do you write it down?" I asked him. "I have to take notes, but never specifics. I write to show my boss, but never what's said between us. Would you like to see?" My turn to trust him. "No, it's okay," I answered. "You can see my notes any time you like," he said. "It's your room," he added. "I'm way over time. Sorry," I said, grabbing my coat from the back of my chair. "Do you want to go?" he asked, elaborated on the word want. "No," I said. "Then let me have a smoke, and we'll talk about this clay man of yours. Come on," he said, heading out the door. I followed with my coat on. "You won't tell anyone?" I asked. "Nope," he said, exhaling into the sky. A car went past. "Then what do you tell the boss?" I asked him. "Tell them what I need to. If you used clay, I say you made progress with clay and started talking to me today. If that's okay with you, I said today you started to trust me. But I won't say what we said or who you made. No personal details." I nodded. A car went past again. "Which is your car?" I asked, pointing to the car park. "I don't drive," he said. I was stunned and saw him again with new eyes, and realised I knew nothing about this man. "Why?" I asked. "Never saw the point. Lots of buses, so I never learnt, he replied. Everyone I know drives, I said. You don't have to do what everyone else does, he said, a wicked grin spreading across his face. The sun was out. We went back inside where Clive seemed to take up the whole room. I have a question, Nigel said, making a brew. I looked at him in reply, expecting him to ask about my clay man. Clive, I said out loud. Sorry, Nigel said. Him. Clive, I replied, pointing. My uncle. You're angry with him, he said, telling me, not asking. What makes you say that? I asked levelly. See anything different or unusual on him, he said. No, I said. 2 arms, 2 legs, a body and a head. I said, not looking. Look closely, Nigel said. I did. My clay Clive had a head, 2 legs, a body, and 1 arm. I'd checked twice. I'd taken ages over it. Only Nigel and me had been in the room. The door was locked when we left. I must have missed an arm and not even realised. Why does he make you angry? He said, passing me a hot coffee cup covered in fresh clay fingerprints. Sorry, I said, sighing. It's okay, he said with a nod, prompting me to continue. I can't... Shit, I said, placing the cup down. Is it hard to talk? Nigel asked me. Yes, I answered. Be right back. Nigel left. I heard him tell Brenda we'd be a while longer. When he returned, I said, She's here, I've got to go, she'll be mad. Fuck her, she can wait, he said. And I creased up laughing. I must have looked totally shocked. It's okay, you can blame me, he said. I smiled. Nigel was okay. You were telling me about Clayman Clive, he said. He killed my mum. I know it. I was there, I said. When Clive killed Mum? Nigel asked. No. When he beat my dad up, I said, stuttering as I explained. Okay, bit of a bastard, is he? Nigel asked. I nodded, relaxing a little. Yeah. I was in the living room when the door went. Clive and Phil came in. I recited how my uncles had beat Wenzel up, and how Clive had used the ironing board to break his back. And how Wenzel had said when they'd left he'd have used the hammer behind the curtain if he'd known it was there. Thank you, Nigel said, pulling his chair close to mine quickly. Before he'd reached me, I'd stood up, sending my chair flying, moving against the wall, arms up, ready to fight or run. Sorry, he said, still seated. It's okay. I was going towards Clive. I didn't mean to startle you. I'd not hurt you, he added. I dropped my arms, feeling foolish and ashamed. Sorry, I nodded. Let's give him some eyes, Nigel said, taking a pencil and doing 2 dots. What would you like to do to him? He said to Clive, standing on the large shelf that came out at waist height. No, I said, standing next to Nigel. Nigel took a piece of clay from the sack, rolled it and snapped it. We can break it up, he said, rolling the clay and pulling it apart. Tear it limb from limb, he said, smiling. He rolled it back and took a plastic knife and fork out. We can prod it, he said, poking it with a fork. Or cut it up into pieces, he said, slicing an end off his sausage-shaped clay. He put the knife, fork and pencil down together next to one another beside clay Clive. Said, I'm going to get up and walk to my desk now, okay? I nodded, staring at the stood-up Clive. I took Nigel's sausage-shaped clay and gave Clive another arm. I sat down in front of him and lay clay Clive up. I sat calm, arms in my lap, and I saw Clive. I threw myself into the images of him stood over me, strangling me, hanging me over the balcony, stealing from my nan, fighting with Alan, hitting his wife. I felt the pain. I watched it play out all around me. Only Clive and me existed now, him and I, no rules apart from mine. It's okay to do anything. I took the pencil, I marked a cross on Clive's chest like the one on my nan's coffin, and I placed the pencil down gently and sat back. What do you want to do? Do what you want to do, Nigel said quietly. I heard him, but I couldn't see him. Clive had taken up every vision, all of my perception. My hands had moved without thought or intent at such speed. I'd grabbed the knife and plunged it into Clive's chest, face over and over.